We will determine if we are able to fulfill them. Even though gator prices have dropped to their lowest point in over a decade, Willie is still hell-bent on reeling in larger gators for a larger payday. The story of Willie Edwards, a bayou sorrel youngster who became a nighttime lone hunter after adversity, was told to us. Edwards preyed on enormous gators and serpents, despite he defying warnings from family supporters and fellow hunters as they ventured further into peril. Tragic events befell his family, and thereafter, the guy who had taught him everything disappeared. These previous cautions were brought to light by this defeat. However, prior to doing so, when discussing the tragic events, it is necessary to inquire about the identity of Willie Edwards and the Swamp People. Known as Swamp People, Willie Edwards, the American reality show Swamp People debuted on August 22, 2010, on the History Channel. Viewers are forced to delve, revealing the everyday lives of the people who earn a livelihood hunting American alligators in the Louisiana wetlands. Central to the episode is the Atchafalaya River Basin, a vast wetland area where many families have relied on the land for subsistence for many years. Presenters on the show don't limit themselves to simply pursue this as a sport. There are a lot of people whose livelihood depends on this brief hunting season. The first Wednesday of September marks the beginning of Louisiana's brief alligator season, which lasts for just 30 days. At that period, hunters face a trifecta of challenges: the passing of time, the elements, and the capturing as many alligators as their tags permit in the unpredictable swamp. These tags are more than just a piece of paper. These are valid authorizations. The state assigns a certain number to each hunter, and alligators caught by them are required to have tags attached to them. The alligator hunting season will come to a close the moment these tags are depleted. The remaining tags and the money they could have made would be wasted if they don't use them all by the end of the month. For this reason, finishing the season strong is the pinnacle goal. Gator hunting is more than simply a profession in this region. This has been done for around 300 years, a tradition passed down over generations, typically from parents to their children, a body of information accumulated over a life, which entails being able to read the water, locate the largest gators, and safely traverse a swamp that can suddenly become treacherous. There will be no miraculous improvement in your situation. Once the 30 days are up, the majority of these hunters have to find other ways to earn a living. Some people place traps for raccoons, turtles, or shrimp, while others set traps for crawfish, shrimp, or catfish. You might say that many of them strike a balance between the swamp lifestyle and the modern world by maintaining day jobs outside of it. With each new season, fans get an up-close look at a new hunting squad, talent, the strength of their familial ties, and their resilience in the face of terrible obstacles. At its core, Swamp People is about gator hunting, but it also depicts other aspects of their lives, such as fishing excursions, hunting for various species, and instances where survival and tradition intersect. The series branched off from the Atchafalaya after the 4th season. Although the swamp culture has its origins in a specific location, the cameras tracked workers as they explored various regions of Louisiana and even the swamps of Texas, demonstrating that this culture is much more widespread than previously thought. Willie Edwards, then, who is he? As they did for many years, Junior Edwards and his son Willy started the alligator season that year, side by side. They were a well-oiled machine in the pilot episode. Willy began to tackle hunts on his own before long, though since Junior had unintentionally shot Willy in the hand not long ago, everyone took note of the alteration. On the other hand, Willy's demeanor made it very plain. They remained united after the catastrophe. 2 things were noticeable to Willy while he was out on the lake. The first thing he did was take chances that other hunters would have been scared off by, but his swift and daring movements paid off when he caught the largest gators. To add to that, he was always complimentary of his dad. At no point, even when he received cursed, not once after being shot, or even when bitten, Willy and Junior got right back to work after the accident. His esteem for his dad remained unchanged. Even when he went hunting by himself, like Bruce Mitchell, he returned to accompany Junior on the boat. On the water, Junior's voice could be heard clearly at times, such as when Willy's hook aim was just wrong by a few inches, or when he drew a gator's head 2 feet from Junior's rifle barrel instead of the 1.5 feet that Junior liked. Junior was a seasoned pro who insisted on perfection from his subordinates, but Willy knew his father was a better hunter than he was. even though he was a competent hunter himself. He continued to show him respect, while also listening and learning from him. It became clear from observing the swamp inhabitants that every hunting party had its own unique method of operation. Landry, Troy, he depended on establishing a consistent rhythm with his crew, which he accomplished with Clint and Liz, but not necessarily with his son Jacobin, lest they were in the midst of a tropical storm. Raj, with Jay relying on inherited instincts, Paul Malinire their airboat and their Huma ancestry. The Gist brothers were patient, waiting for whatever came their way, and they were prepared to cook everything with beer. Willie and Junior did a lot of the same things as everyone else, including using the most repulsive flesh they could locate as bait, fishing from the optimal height, and trimming their lines, dawned too far into the night. Also, they possessed an unconventional technique, the hand-thrown treble hook, that no one else had. A heavy homemade equipment ideal for grabbing gators was created in the first season by melting lead and pouring it into a pipe loaded with hooks. It followed that Willie always went with that style, and it was effective. Unlike most alligator hunters, his father Junior had his own unique style. He was a fisherman all year, so when gator season ended, he didn't move to another full-time job. As for the pricing of fish and game in southern Louisiana, that was no easy task, since conditions may change in an instant, and a poor season could undo months of labor. While getting ready for the next battle, he pursued whatever was in season, which may be crabs, crawfish, or catfish. Willie is a lone hunter. How does he survive in the swamp? How does one go about living in a swamp? The swamp people have a phrase that Willie Edwards learned the hard way: never turn your back on a dead gator. Hot and heavy with the aroma of damp grass and mud, the morning had flowed through the air. He and Junior were working the lines when they encountered a large alligator. There was no room for error in Junior's shot. The target area, behind the gator's head, was little larger than a quarter. The rifle produced a sharp cracking sound as it hit the motionless water, and Willie seized their heavy handcrafted treble hook in order to drag the beast into the boat. The one catch was that he failed to see the gator was still alive. As soon as it landed on the deck, the alligator swung its tail and snapped its jaws, reviving it. Willie acted on impulse rather than planning, shifting his weight onto the gator's back to steady it as Junior struggled to one additional round. The gator's rapid circling nearly caused Willie to lose his hold on it. Its jaws clamped down on his hand with such a crushing force that he thought his bones would crumble. He yelled out for assistance, and Junior scampered over to him, but Junior had a little folding knife. Biting with about 1,000 pounds of pressure is possible for a 5-foot gator, and it refused to release its grip. Willie managed to free his fingers by snatching them from the jaws, which Junior had stuck between them. Junior wasted no time at all as he rifled once more, this time at a level target. Even though the gator went limp this time, the danger was far from ended. Biting a gator poses the risk of serious infection due to the 38 different kinds of bacteria that live in its mouth. Willie's fingers ached at the spot where the fangs had sliced into his flesh. They were aware that he might be on the ground if he didn't clean it. Over several days, this is why the lads used to bring hydrogen peroxide with them. In the field, you would tend to your wounds, clean them up, and return to your job, unless the situation warranted medical attention. There were more than gators in the marsh. Impending storms originating in the Gulf * might quickly transform placid water into a lethal trap. Few were aware of this, as well as Troy Landry. In bad weather, a buddy of his attempted to cross Lake Verret, but the waves were too strong, and he went down before he reached the shore. If you were to plunge headfirst into lifeless water, you're not actually swimming out. Jacket. Troy determined that the greatest places to see alligators were across the lake. One summer day, they sailed out on rough seas, and halfway across, Whitecap pounded on the hull, shooting spray into the sky. He yelled out to his companion to stay on board, and accelerated the motor to overcome the waves. Fortunately, they were able to cross. Joe Lafont and Tommy Chauvin encountered a storm on Lake Pontchartrain during that identical week. Joe failed to notice that the gators had gone into hiding due to the wind, rather not return home with anything. Despite having to traverse open water during a storm, he assured Tommy that they would attempt one more sight. However, Tommy was adamantly opposed to being involved. They were drenched as the waves pounded the boat. Also, the deck felt like it was about to give way at that very second. Knowing the lake wasn't worth risking their lives for, Tommy made his point halfway across, and they promptly turned back. On other cases, it wasn't the water that posed the threat. RAJ discovered it when pursuing a shoreline gator caught in a cypress trail. The alligator appeared lifeless, its skull resting motionless in the muck. Yet as soon as RAJ drew near, the rope snapped, and the alligator swung around. Thankfully, the majority of the histos were unharmed by the biting. However, the point was made. No matter where you are, a gator might still kill you. While yanking grass from a line, Troy Landry narrowly avoided a collision with an alligator that was 8 feet long. As the alligator twisted and snapped, a sudden surge of agony coursed through him. Troy had serious cuts on both sides of his hand before they managed to get it under control. He insisted he didn't pass out because of the rush of adrenaline. In contrast, Willie was in danger due of an external factor. The firearm belonged to his father. Willie was within feet on multiple occasions when Junior shot at a gator. During one incident, Willie was wounded by a bullet that rebounded off the gator's skull and went a quarter of an inch higher, nearly causing him to lose an eye. Even when the bleeding subsided, the lingering pain of the lead burn persisted. On other instances, the alligator's determination to survive was more dangerous than the weapon or its fangs. Keep in mind that we brought up the fact that Willie once brought what he believed to be a lifeless gator into the boat, only for it to reawaken and put its full weight on his foot, breaking his toe. Bite ripped his footwear to shreds, and he was about to lose his reflexes may have been quicker. The hunters themselves stepped over the line into irresponsibility on occasion. It injured 650-pound alligator once thrashed Paul Molinari when he dove into the water with it, wrestling it into a headlock. Who was his father, RAJ? Fearing for his son's life, he kept a close eye on the situation from the safety of the boat. They were able to capture it by tying its legs together, but it was a risky maneuver. But that wasn't the only threat the marsh posed. When an ant bait line became entangled in Jacob Landry's boat's prop, he learned about the alligators. The hook swung around to hit the deck again before sinking deeply into his leg. Instant agony ensued as the massive barb of the number 3 shark hook pierced the flesh. In order to bring about worse, amid all the chaos, they misplaced the key to the boat. There was no way out of the bayou, so they waited for another boat to pass by and bring Jacob back to land. The barb of the hook was cut and pushed through by medical professionals at the hospital, who also cautioned him to be vigilant for infection. The Swampers team, there was more to Bayou than just a workplace. Yes, that was a battlefield. Meanwhile, the gators were out there, waiting patiently. It took the hunter turning hunted after just one slip-up, the passing of a father figure. Throughout his life, Willie Edwards had a strong bond with his family. His parents, Junior and Teresa Edwards, made appearances with their 2 kids in Swamp People. They made their debut in the pilot and continued until the last season of the show. Following that, Junior and Teresa got up from the couch, but Willie persisted in watching. There was no one else from the Edwards family who kept making appearances on the show, and he seems to have done rather well for himself thus far. There was more to the program than cameras and seasons for Willie. That was a component of his income. Willie continued the family tradition of alligator hunting and commercial fishing, which had been the main sources of income for the Edwards for a long time. A combination of his show earnings and the reliable income from the family fishing company allowed him to provide for his young family. Willie Jr. and Teresa all attempted something new while they weren't out hunting or fishing. They dabbled in the tourist industry for a while, providing fishing excursions and guided tours of the Afalaya River Basin. They gave sightseers a chance to experience the marshes as the people whose family has worked the land for many years. Also around this time, they debuted their merchandise line, which included t-shirts, caps, and other items that were purchased in large quantities by nearby stores. Their schedules were full for a while due to the retail and tourist ventures, but the company's website has gone down by 2015, for whatever reason, maybe a lack of profitability, or a return to their roots in hunting and fishing. The enterprise eventually fizzled out, and they returned their attention to the swamp and its waterways. Residents of swamps could have been made for television, but the heat, dirt and alligators lurking beneath the water were just as genuine as the hazards that the men and women encountered in the Louisiana wetlands. Some people felt threatened, not by the swamp per se, but by the outside world. It was devastating. A vehicle accident in Louisiana claimed Randy Edwards' life on September 15, 2018. His age was a mere 35. even though he was at the wheel. The advocate claims he lost control and couldn't make a left turn. The vehicle lost control and crashed into a utility pole. Additionally, he did not have on or wore a seatbelt and was declared deceased upon arrival at the scene. The newscaster Willie Edwards was shared by swamp dwellers via the Facebook site of Junior and Teresa Edwards. Fans and fellow hunters were startled and grieved upon hearing the news. According to Ree's obituary, his spouse and he was survived by children. The Edwards family was always there, passing on the alligator hunting techniques and traditions, even if his time on the show ended all too quickly. When they embarked on a new season, everyone who knew Randy could feel the void he had previously filled. From the very beginning, the Edwards family has been an integral part of the show. Among Junior and Teresa Edwards' children, Randy is the youngest. Along with their father and older brother, Willie Edwards, he goes hunting. As children, the brothers spent their time in the swamp, where they learned to fish and hunt, toiling away for decades. Funny and determined to work hard in any weather, Randy is a standout among fans. More tragedy befell the family in subsequent years. The son of Willie Edwards made an announcement on Saturday, July 26, 2005, with the help of Facebook, that Junior Edwards, his grandpa, had died away. "Rest easy, Papa. You're probably running your hoop nets or doing something crazy inside those pearly gates. You will be fine," he wrote alongside a photo of Junior and his dad out on the ocean. Messages from admirers flooded in, expressing their deepest sorrow and love for Papa. They longed for his return. A fan commented that Junior was a favorite of theirs from the episode. "No, I really enjoyed watching your..." Another person remarked, "Rest easy, Dad and him in the swamps. Take it easy." Ronnie Adams shared a photo of himself with Willy and their 2 boys on Instagram, adding, "Praying for the Edwards in this time of need. Rest in peace, Junior." Ashley also paid tribute. Another swamp people hunter, Deddy Jones, also reminisced. She praised Junior as an extreme outdoorsman and one of the best alligator hunters in the world. In Pier Park, Louisiana, she recalled seeing him bring enormous gators into Duffy's gas station following a hard day in the swamp. She captioned the couple's selfie with, "Glad we took a second for a pic." From 2010 until 2015, Junior Edwards was a regular on Swamp People, hunting with his grandson and son Willy, posting a Facebook photo with the message, "Surprise. Look who's back for season 12 in 2021. Returning to the topic at hand, I was wondering if you believed that these setbacks were related to the warnings that had been communicated regarding Willie Edwards. Prioritize your own safety above all else when you head out on a hunt in Florida. When you're out on the water, you must adhere to the state's boating regulations, which include having your navigation lights turned on at night and having a life jacket for each person on board. The jacket must be kept in a dark place, with tree stumps and subsurface debris visible, and an enraged gator dangling from the line, because a gator's behavior can change in an instant, and a violent thrash can knock a man for a loop. You don't wait around for a gator bite, even a little one that would leave a minor cut, to heal, since the water they lived in carried all sorts of bacteria. Then he dives into the water before he can get a hold of anything. Get medical treatment immediately, because even a little cut might rapidly turn into a serious infection. Some hunters use a bang stick for killing, but it's a hazardous tool if not handled properly. It functions like a gun, so it must always be pointed in a safe direction. The Ashafalaya is far from any cities or roads, and you weren't supposed to point it at anyone. When you weren't using it, you had to unload it quickly. A number of men have been injured because they mistook the bang stick for a stick, not a gun. Basin, the biggest river swamp in America. It's a completely different planet. Almost 500,000 acres of hardwood swamps, open lakes, and winding bayous, and it was teeming with every kind of animal you could imagine. Just 30 miles from Baton Rouge was the Ashafalaya National Wildlife Refuge, which is a part of hunting opportunities in the Sherborne complex include white-tailed deer, squirrel, rabbit, and other game species. The complex is shared by the refuge, the Sherborne Wildlife Management Area, and land administered by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Turkeys, raccoons, woodcocks, and a variety of waterfowl. Seasons and licenses are specified by Louisiana law, and hunters are required to have a self-cleaning permission, which can be obtained at kiosks along the entrance roads or downloaded from the website of the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. Download the Check-in Checkout app from the App Store or Google Play on your mobile device. The hunts were divided between open seasons and lotteries. Archery, muzzleloader and gun were used for deer hunts, and both open and lottery seasons were available for turkey hunts. Also available for hunting were foxes, gray squirrels, rabbits, raccoons, waterfowl, snipes, rails, gallinules, woodcocks, and mourning doves. The area was designed to accommodate hunters with wheelchairs, with designated ATV roads and specially constructed blinds for deer and waterfowl, operated through the lottery system, providing them with an opportunity to hone their skills in one of the country's most productive hunting grounds. The swamp was a place of equal opportunity and danger, where a man could return home with the biggest catch of his life or never return at all. And that was important for every hunter to remember this fact. Willie Edwards had spent the majority of his life pursuing gators, but this was different. In a remote area called the Black Lagoon, a monster had slipped past a heavy size 14 hook the previous year. He hung on to the bent hook as a memento. A season later, he returned for the same animal, alligator that weighed close to 500 pounds and was around 13 feet long. The morning was calm and dense, with the scent of the kind of heat that traps the scent of the swamp like a damp rag. Silently, Willie guided his boat into the lagoon, for the law forbade hunting after dark, and noise is the enemy when hunting gators, especially ones of that size. Gently ease yourself into the water and keep an eye out for the telltale signs that these creatures have been there. Muddy slides down the bank, paths through the grass, and most importantly, bubbles, tiny pockets of methane that rise to the surface when a gator moves under the water. Your best bets. Willie swore a good bubble trail may quickest bring him to a large one. He remained on the bank for a long, binoculars in hand, scanning the water. Patience is key, because alligators can remain underwater for more than 30 minutes. Eventually, they must surface for air. As soon as they do, you can assess their size and determine if they are worthwhile. Willie recognized his own bubble trail, so he positioned the bait high on the line of wild chicken that could make anyone sick just thinking about it. Setting it low would only attract smaller ones. As previously stated, a gator of this size would rise, devour the bait in one gulp, and bury the hook deep into its gut. The following morning, it would be a question of locating his hiding place. When the mammoth rolled under Willie's line and took it, the battle broke out. Willie realized immediately that the hook was buried in the belly, giving him inadequate leverage, and the water was churning like a hurricane. In the midst of the battle, the line became loose for an instant, but it was just long enough for Willie to notice the gator's head poking through the surface. Bracing himself with his arms locked, he could feel the weight on the other end of the line. Willie's cylinder clicked empty as he reloaded his handgun, a 6-shooter, and fired all of his rounds into the gator, hoping for a clean kill. However, this wasn't just any gator. It continued to thrash and drag even after the shots. The behemoth was still there. As he drew the corpse closer, he recognized it as the gator from the previous year, the one that had twisted its jaws and escaped. Willie had finally triumphed, but now came the challenging part, gaining half a ton of muscle and bone into his boat without the aid of another pair of hands. A gator of that size isn't merely heavy, it poses a danger even when dead. Its jaws are capable of snapping by a factor of 4. Willie had witnessed hunters being injured by the mere virtue of their tails. As their raw Willie assessed the scenario, recalling instances where gators had slipped off trailers or sprang out of truck beds after everyone thought they were finished. Because their muscles were so powerful they might break bones. The gator was too heavy to be hauled by hand, so he looked around the bank for a pulley point, and he opted to use 2 trees near together, looping his rope over them to provide greater leverage. The trees squatted under the weight, and he briefly doubted that they would stand. As perspiration trickled down his face and the rope clenched in his fists, he painstakingly moved the gator's enormous frame over the boat's edge, inch by inch, until it slammed into the water with a resounding thud. 13 feet of reptile, the same one, lay at his feet. Standing there for a moment, Willie caught his breath, knowing that the Black Lagoon was no place for empty threats. The truth had to be taught the hard way. Willie Edwards had experienced danger, sorrow, and difficult lessons throughout swamps. Nevertheless, he faithfully follows in his father's footsteps by returning time and time again. Some admire his bravery, while others wonder if the dangers are worthwhile. However, Despite everything he has gone through and lost, one question remains unanswered. How many more warnings must he endure before the swamp lays claim to him? Leave a comment with your ideas, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos.